I've done some big things for Metropolis, but I've got to do more to make people forget the former Superman and think of me as the one and only Superman. Silver Age Superman is just terrible at picking people to replace him. Just a bad judge of character, and the results are hilarious. I'm very excited for this one. It's Silver Age time, my favorite time. Well, one of my favorite times. Today we're looking at a tale of alternate Superman, who the cover lets you know right off the bat is a tyrant. Featuring the Tyrant Superman. Please listen to me, Ar-Val. After I lost my Superman powers, I released you from Kandor to take my place. Now Lois and Lana are in terrible danger. I beg you to save them. Shut up, Kent. I am Superman now. Stop bothering me or I'll really get mad and hit you instead of this wall. Look out, he's blonde. Homelander incoming. I'm Sasha. This is Casually Comics. Let's have some fun as we discover the Tyrant Superman, or the new Superman as people in the story call him. But first, a quick announcement. This video is brought to you by me. If you're interested, I do have memberships and I have a Kofi. It helps support the channel so we can keep covering the random, the whims, all of those things. And also so that we can dive into hopefully some more obscure material. If you can contribute, it's always appreciated, and I do post some extra things there. I'd slipped, but I'm back at it. So now I have things like text-based reviews, because there are lots of things I just don't have time to cover on the main channel, but I have read or checked out. So you might hear about some things that you hadn't heard about that way. And also we can chat back and forth back there. And also there's some behind the scenes of things that were going to happen, but didn't, or in the works, that kind of stuff. I'll have the links down below, and if you can contribute, it's much appreciated. And if not, it's just appreciated that you're here and ready for the Silver Age. Now look up in the sky, the new Superman. It won't last. We know they'll have to bring back Superman Classic. This story is coming to us from 1964 and is written by Edmund Hamilton, who wrote the last Silver Age story we covered, the Satan Girl story, which was very stilted. This one is nothing like that. Hamilton's feeling this one. The art in this is by Kurt Swan, inks by George Klein. We open on the Daily Planet newsroom and nobody wanting a specific assignment. Nobody wants to cover the story about how an astronomer has made an interesting discovery. And so it gets dumped on Clark. I guess you're elected, Clark. It won't take long since it's not terribly important. You don't even know what it is yet and you've already written it off. In all fairness, Lana has too. Lana Lang, then you thought this big enough to cover for your TV news outfit. My boss thought so, Clark, not me. The only stars I'm interested in are movie stars. Wow, her report's gonna be great. So what is this discovery? Why, it's a potentially deadly green comet. It's hurtling through the galaxy and it's gonna spread its deadly poison rays to various planets, but not Earth. They're specific about that. But this astronomer is worried about those other planets. He thinks that maybe they might be inhabited. Oh wow, that was nice of him. Consider it. They don't say that this meteor is kryptonite, but it's bright green. In my headcanon, it's just kryptonite. But in this story, it's a vaguely poisonous comet that I keep accidentally calling a meteor that Jor-El was aware of and had created methods to reverse its deadly effects. But those methods were too terrible to use. Clark remembers this because, as he says, he has total recall. Now that comet has returned, and to save helpless worlds, I have to face its menace. From what I know about this comet, it may destroy me. If so, for the benefit of mankind, I must appoint a successor to carry on for me. Thankfully, there are lots of Kryptonians to choose from in the bottle city of Kandor. So he goes there and he tells them to pick their most physically and mentally able candidates, and he'll run them through some tests to see who's worthy of being replacement Superman. They come back with two names, Ar-Val and Brenine. Up out of the bottle on their jet-powered flying belts come two tiny figures. I borrowed this ring from Green Lantern, my fellow member of the Justice League, and its power will enlarge these two to normal size. You just borrowed that ring? What if there's a Green Lantern related emergency? Also, he can just use that to make them regular size at any time? Is it permanent? The fact that he's just using that ring so casually, way to say that Hal's not special. Or does Hal know you took it? Where's Hal, Clark? No time for any of these questions. It's time for Superman's tests, like stopping rocks from falling. Then, on the ocean's bottom, using temporary telepathic powers given them by Green Lantern's ring. The Silver Age Green Lantern ring frightens me. Hal is walking around able to do pretty much anything. Thankfully, he just doesn't think of most of those things half the time. And I really hope that Superman charged the ring back up before he gave it back to him. Otherwise, there may be a dead Hal somewhere floating through space. Of the two Kryptonians, Ar-Val uses his powers the most successfully, and the most responsibly, meaning that he's causing the least amount of collateral damage. So he gets to be just in case Superman. With that dealt with, Superman goes to push that meteor in a different direction. He does so, but it robs him of his powers, which means it's time for Ar-Val. When Ar-Val of Kandor answers the call and is enlarged to normal size, then I am to begin my career as the new Superman of Earth. It's wonderful, but of course I'm sorry you lost your powers. I guess it had to be. I'll give you my indestructible Superman costume, and I'll wear this duplicate costume instead. I'll also tell you all I know about that terrible comet, just in case you encounter it. Superman is all or nothing. He's giving Ar-Val the fortress, he's giving him Jimmy. Goodbye, Jimmy. You'll never know how much your friendship meant to me, but I've lost my superpowers.
You can't go. It can't all end like this. I'll keep the loss of your power secret, but must you go away?
Oh, that's nice. You see, Jimmy thinks more of your friendship than just the souvenirs you bring him. Clark is not okay. He's having a hard time adjusting to the idea of just being Clark Kent. This is the Silver Age, so the Clark-Superman balance is a bit different than it will evolve into being in the Bronze Age, and especially post-Crisis under John Byrne. Then we'll see the relationship that has grown to be the norm. That is that Clark is the dominant and Superman is more what he does.
I've got to live out my life now as Clark Kent and stop thinking of myself as Superman. This is me, Kent.
In all fairness, it's not surprising he's having a hard time because all of a sudden he can't do something that he's been able to do since childhood. Because in this timeline, he was also Superboy and then Superman, so he's been superheroing for quite some time. Suddenly, the X-Man of Steel loses control.
Ow! Smashing my reflection won't change things. It only emphasizes them by cutting my hand.
Look at the new Superman in action. New Superman. New Superman. New Superman!
I mean, it would help a tiny bit if the people of Metropolis weren't so fickle, and if the narration box wasn't coming so hard for him. X-Man of Steel. He's an X-Man now. That joke was so bad. Part 2. This tale only has 3 parts. It's taken up the whole issue. It's that special. Part 2. The Superman of the past is gone from the scene of his great triumphs, and Metropolis rings with the sensational deeds of the new Superman. But the X-Man of Steel, again, rebuffed and rejected by his own successor, must fight a looming danger even though he now has no superpowers and is Clark Kent, former Superman. Why does it have to go so hard? So the news that Superman has retired is broadcast. Lana is in tears as she presents it. But do you know who's thrilled? Lex Luthor. He hears it in prison on his secret receiver. The 2023 run is channeling this Lex's energy hard. Lex decides it's time to call his evil friend, Brainiac. Brainiac, most terrible evildoer in all the universe, here's the summons. As long as Superman was around, our Plan 76 could not succeed. But with a new inexperienced Superman on duty, it might work. I'll initiate Plan 76 at once. So Brainiac just comes to pick Lex up, but Lex gets shot in the process. That'll matter later. Soon, reporter Clark Kent receives a sudden shock.
Luthor escapes. This could mean a terrible tragedy, for I remember that when I last put Luthor in prison...
You've done this to me once too often, Superman. Next time I escape, I'll kill your dear friends Lois Lane and Lana Lang for revenge.
Thanks for warning me. I'll keep vigilant watch on you at all times.
He's so unfazed, just, aw gee, thanks for letting me know. Clark goes to see Ar-Val, who's busy building a giant arch with statues of himself in the middle of the city. And he is having none of Clark.
Ar-Val, I beg you to take this seriously and help me. You don't know how dangerous Luthor and Brainiac can be.
Let's get this straight, Clark. I'm Superman now and I make the decisions. If those criminals start anything, I'll sue and stop them. Now go away and quit bothering me. Maybe Clark should have told the people of Kandor to also screen and make sure they weren't picking a raging egomaniac. That might have been good. Lex is cured of his wounds by Brainiac's curative ray. Again, this will matter later. Now back to Ar-Val being a jerk. Meanwhile, Jimmy Olsen has learned the alarming news and acts. I heard your signal watch, Olsen. What is it?
Luthor has escaped. I know you'll want to go right after him.
As I told Clark Kent, I will not waste time chasing a dead crook. Don't call me again for such foolishness, or I'll take away your signal watch.
He's sure not like my pal, the old Superman. Maybe I better see Clark about this.
You know, with the nonsense that Jimmy pulls, really sometimes Superman should threaten to take away his signal watch, but this is not one of those times. Jimmy's going to see Clark so they can commiserate about Superman, but Superman is there already, so he just pretends that he was there to see Clark, and then the two of them end up talking. Jimmy has an idea as to how Superman can get some powers. But first, more egotistical new Superman. Meanwhile, the new Superman is performing his most sensational feat yet. With my telescopic vision, I glimpsed Clark Kent switching into a Superman costume. I've got to stop his interference with my career.
Officials of Metropolis, I've made and brought you this new, bigger city hall. This one has a giant statue of me on top, so it's better.
Don't look inside. There's no spy paraphernalia in there at all. It's fine. Jimmy's plan is to call the Legion and have them project some of their powers back onto Superman. They can do that.
This is Jimmy Olsen. Can you use the Time Force Wave Carrier to charge the original Superman with your great powers?
Saturn Girl speaking. Unluckily, only Cosmic Boy and Invisible Kid are here with me. The other Legionnaires are on missions, but we and you can give him what powers we have.
Oh no, how will Superman get by without Bouncing Boy's powers?
What's wrong with telepathy, magnetism, and invisibility? That's a good combo. Plus, Jimmy gives him some of the Elastic Lad serum so he can also stretch.
Well, those 4 powers are better than none, even though they're weak beside your former powers. Wait, what's that radio news saying?
So the new Metropolis law forbids anyone but the new Superman to wear the Superman costume. The penalty for disobedience is 5 years imprisonment and a $5,000 fine.
Ar-Val's gone mad. Mad, I say. He's just imposing laws and they're just letting it happen. Is it because he brought them a new city hall? The people of Metropolis are fine like this. Think of all the things that Clark could do if he was more tyrannical. Thank goodness he isn't. This is why Superman needs a new costume, like the one we saw in the Part 2 teaser. And Jimmy makes him one right quick. So quickly that it makes me feel like he already had that on standby just in case.
FS can stand for former Superman, at least. I used material from a spare Elastic Lad costume so you can stretch without tearing your clothes.
It's swell, Jimmy. Now I'm going to try using my telepathic powers to find Luthor. but as I can't fly now, I'll need the planet helicopter.
I'm glad that the Daily Planet doesn't need to use its helicopter for, news.
Saturn Girl's thought-casting power sure comes in handy. I'm getting a strong telepathic impression that Luthor is somewhere here. I'll use my Invisible Kid power to search unseen.
You see, these powers are great. Plus, he can just Magneto those tanks.
And an instant later, look out! This green kryptonite nugget will take care of him. Since I lost my superpowers, kryptonite no longer affects me, just as it doesn't harm other humans.
I mean, tell that to Lex and all the problems he's gonna have from his exposure to kryptonite.
That's gonna happen later in the canon.
However, Superman is vulnerable to normal things like knockout gas, and so they use some of that and that works. And Lex still wants to kill Lois and Lana, which brings us to part 3.
From atop the new city hall, the heroic statue of the new Superman looks out, and Ar-Val, the new Superman himself, also surveys the great city. I've done some big things for Metropolis, but I've gotta do more to make people forget the former Superman and think of me as the one and only Superman.
How could you do this to Superman? He gave you Jimmy, and the people also accepted you just fine. Why is this a thing? What are you jealous of? But Ar-Val cannot be contained, so he calls a press conference where he starts to fake all kinds of disasters so that he can then prevent them. And these are serious things, like, oh, that train looks like it's gonna derail because I pulled the tracks. While this is going on, Lois and Lana get a ransom note from Brainiac and Lex and head off. Jimmy sees this and once more tries to get Ar-Val to help and do some real superheroing and not just manufacture his own disasters. Superman is in danger and Lana and Lois are headed into a trap. You've gotta help.
Olsen, I told you before, you're exaggerating things. I'll look into it after my press conference.
Oh yeah? Suppose I tell them how you really created those emergencies today. I spied you secretly using your superpowers.
Olsen, please don't tell them that. I only want to be admired like the former Superman. I'll go with you if you don't tell anyone.
Does Jimmy have that much clout that people would believe him over new Superman? Also, the people were already admiring you. I heard the new Superman chant. New Superman!
By the time they get going, Lex and Brainiac already have Lois and Lana. And Brainiac is waiting for the new Superman with a kryptonite harpoon.
And the former Superman hurls himself staggeringly in the path of the weapon.
Ar-Val, get back out of the range of the kryptonite rays.
Superman, no!
See, Brainiac covered his bases, because that is still a harpoon. Despite the lack of blood because of the comics code and its no gore rules, Clark is very seriously hurt. Next moment, the new Superman becomes an avenging fury.
Don't kill them, Ar-Val. Remember Superman's oath. Turn them over to the police.
You're right. I lost my head. I'll use this girder to bind them securely.
Lois, is he...
I think he's dying, Jimmy. Oh.
Remember how Lex was cured by Brainiac's device? That was Chekhov's healing chamber, and it's here to save Superman.
Sorry, former Superman. Seeing how selfless Superman was, sorry, the hero formerly known as Superman, it does something to Ar-Val.
I guess he didn't watch those giant movies of Superman's exploits that were always playing in the center of Kandor. We've seen them.
Anyway, he feels that he's now not worthy of being Superman. He really didn't live up to it. Does he change his ways, try to become a better hero, live up to the example that Superman has set? No. Instead, he tries to abandon the role and find a way to give Superman back his powers, which in a way is nice, but also you could have just not been a raging egomaniac. That was also an option.
So how does he get Clark his powers back?
Well, way back in part 1, Jor-El did say he'd found a way to combat the comet, but that was too terrible to contemplate. Well, thankfully, he told a colleague about this method, and they live in Kandor, so they can tell Ar-Val. And once he knows that, he flies back and kidnaps Superman. That was fast. That guy just had Jor-El's notes right there. So one day, someone's gonna come and ask me about these notes.
And moments later, in the fortress,
Ar-Val, why did you bring me here and chain me to this pillar? And what are you doing with the electronic generators from the fortress laboratory?
You'll soon find out. I set them to a certain frequency and now I'll turn them on.
Does he have to be chained up like that for this to work? Could he not sit in a nice chair, unchained? Or is this part of what makes it too terrible to contemplate?
Tremendous subtle force wells from the powerful generators.
What is this? What's happening?
This is your father's discovery, Superman. He learned that the only way to restore the superpowers of anyone who had lost them due to the comet's effect was to transfer those powers from another super being's body into the victim's. So I'm transferring the powers in my body into yours.
Yay! Why is this terrible? Well, for some reason, this process turns the person who's transferring their powers into stone. But why? It makes no sense. We could have just not written about Ar-Val again. He didn't need to die.
With resurgent strength, the Man of Steel bursts his fetters.
No, Ar-Val, I won't accept this sacrifice.
It's done now. I wanted to be a great Superman like you. I failed, but this will make amends. Put me in a nice spot in the fortress.
Later, Ar-Val, someday, somehow, I'll find a way to restore you to life. You were too eager for fame, and you made mistakes. But at the end, you proved to be the finest Superman of all.
No, he didn't. And yes, I know he's not technically dead, because Superman says one day he'll find a cure. But we know how Clark is about those things. How's Ar-Val doing these days? just like what happened to B-Boy. But a commenter said that in a letters column, an editor said that they went back and cured B-Boy. This was the boy who was trapped as a half-bee, half-boy hybrid after an accident while exploring with Lana, and then a mad scientist found that the only way to save him was to turn him into a half-bee, half-boy. If this was answered in the letters column, that's the equivalent of having a bonus interview on a DVD. That's just there to make us feel better. We all know that B-Boy died stuck that way. Just like Ar-Val is still an oversized paperweight in the fortress. Thank you, Omniverse. Yes, there was an Ar-Val in the Phantom Zone, but it's not the same one. Even though, I mean, if you wanted to, it wouldn't be hard to make it the same one. Ar-Val was halfway towards villainy already. So that was the tale of Tyrant Superman. He didn't go full tyrant, but we could all see he was heading that way. He was one bad newspaper story away. Not even, just someone comparing him to the OG Superman. That probably would have been all it would have taken, it would have been over. This tale had a lot going on and was a lot of fun. All the points it introduced, it did something with. Even if how it got rid of Ar-Val was a bit convoluted, and the handling of the mystery comet and the cure was a bit clunky, the main entertainment value of this comes from watching Clark struggle to try and find a way to still be a superhero, contrasted with the over-the-top narcissism of the new Superman. There are some very dark corridors that the story could have gone down, but it doesn't. Instead, it stays in its more lighthearted Silver Age lane. But Ar-Val was rife with potential for an update. This could be a fun, decompressed arc. You can slowly watch Ar-Val descend into tyranny, while Clark struggles to find new ways to be a hero. If you don't want the boost from the Legion, maybe he becomes a tech-based hero, or he embraces the hero that he can be as Clark Kent, Daily Planet reporter, taking those assignments that nobody else wants. Although with no distractions and the fact that he could dedicate himself fully to being a reporter, maybe he'd get to pick the choice assignments. At that point, when he's accepted it, his past as Superman will rear its head and threaten those he loves. But he can't depend on the Tyrant Superman, so he must find a way to save them himself. This is actually one of those cases where it would have made sense if the effects of the comet had just worn off, more so than constructing a transference machine. Just why did Ar-Val have to be turned to stone? Couldn't he have just lost the ability to ever have powers again? Or maybe aged up a little bit, lost some years off his life? Some of that would still be a sacrifice, but less, oh yes, over there next to my Jimmy and Lois rooms, that's where I keep my Ar-Val statue. I'll cure him eventually. I just need to make some clothes for my other mannequins first. I had a lot of fun with this one. What about you? Share your thoughts and or favorite alternate Superman adventures down below. And while you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe. If you're feeling so inclined, check out Kofi or the memberships. I always appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend discussing comics with me. And as always, I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.